Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the SASE Professional Monthly Webinar. Uh, I hope everyone's enjoying their summer. I know that it is like flooding and flash flooding in different parts of our country. We're enjoying high 80-degree weather here in the Denver metro area, but I hope everybody is enjoying holiday, vacation, being safe, all that wonderful stuff we get to enjoy. I am trying to look at chat while I am talking and chewing gum at the same time. But it's a delight. I see a collegiate student who's a rising junior in here, Denise, also Shinto, who's joined us. So it's great to have part of our SACE community here on our webinar. I wanted to welcome everybody to 5 Hidden Barriers to Career Success with Lawrence Wee, who is joining us. We're going to, with a few introductory kinds of things from me about our pro conference, just about 30, 45 seconds worth of that kind of announcements and updates. We're going to jump into a little interview style with Lawrence and myself. We thought it was a coincidence and peculiar that we have a Lawrence and a Clarence here. So we're hopefully not going to get too tongue twisted or tongue tied in this. And I also want to thank Jessica for providing IT support and admitting and monitoring chat throughout today's webinar. If you can, please come on camera. It's always wonderful to see people. I think I saw Jana, if I pronounced it correctly. Good to see you. Yeah, but it's always fun to have people go on camera. And of course, during the webinar, if you have questions, please roll them into chat so that we, Lawrence and I, can address those later. Quick SACE professional updates. If you could, Jessica, put on chat the STEM Connect website. Pro, individual, and Pro Pack registrations are currently open. Early bird pricing until July 23rd. So take advantage of that. Also, you'll see on that page for professionals where our hotels are. So the Westin in Pittsburgh, where we're having the Pro conference, is the closest. There's a footbridge that goes across, but it's basically across the street from the convention center. So it's really convenient. Share the opportunity with your ERG teammates, colleagues, friends inside, outside the industry as well. We always love to have new first-timers come and experience the professional conference. And of course, on the collegiate side, where we have the career fair, some of you are aware and participating in those with your respective companies. The last thing I wanted to mention is the Amplify Your Strategic Impact training cohort led by Rebecca Okamoto. That's going to kick off August 22nd. And there are 25 slots available. Zimmer Biomet has 9 of them. Always welcome additional members to join that cohort. It's a 9-week training opportunity. If you want more information, it's actually on our saceconnect.org website, but also connect with me if you would like to learn more about that opportunity. Okay, so with that, I think that going into today's topic, most of us were taught that, hey, you work hard, right? Stay humble, deliver results, you'll get promotions, right? And success will just naturally follow. And unfortunately, we hit wall, right? Sometimes they don't always come, and we're scratching our heads as to why not, right? And so we're going to dive into a few of those with Lawrence today. We call them just 5 little nuggets of hidden barriers that kind of hold us back, right? And while they may not be obvious, challenges or failures per se, these little subtle habits, right, that kind of develop over time and quietly, stall that progress. So I'm going to interview, so to speak, Lawrence, and I'm going to actually, before we jump into that, I'm going to ask Lawrence to very briefly introduce himself because I think some of you are familiar with him.
Yeah, thanks, Clarence. Hey, everybody. Glad to have you on this call today. And really, more than a webinar, this is like a fireside chat. And if you have met me or know me, like connection is a really big part of what I do. And I think why you might be in this room. So I want to encourage you to get on camera. Even if it looks weird, you're driving your car, Obviously, if you're driving your car, make sure you're paying attention to the road. But this is a really good practice for where you're headed. And so let me just give you some background. I'm an executive coach. I have the privilege of working with senior leaders in every industry, as well as senior leadership teams. And as I've worked with high performing teams and high performers like yourselves, I've just recognized a few patterns where they're very subtle. Like Clarence mentioned, you might be working hard, you could be grinding, you're doing probably all the right things, and yet you might not be getting what you want. Sometimes that's promotion, sometimes that's recognition or rewards, whatever that is. There are these kind of hidden barriers, and to be clear, nobody's hiding them. They're not, no one's stuffing them under a rock. It's just as you move up in an organization, there are different demands, there are different sort of skill sets or knowledge sets and expansions. And if we don't understand them, we could be stuck in a certain place. So I think, right, companies demand more, the roles demand more, and nobody's translating this for the employee. So it's my hope today, maybe there's more than five, but like key five things for us just to be aware of so that we can notice things a little bit more of where that might preventing us, whatever our goals are. So it is great to be with here today. And if you were in my workshop, or at least any of the workshops I did 2 years ago on another webinar, I'd love to you put on a chat like, hey, I was there. I remember you. Again, I love connecting with folks. It's a great way for you to engage and practice for where you're headed. So love to see you. Camera on, wave to me, and put something in the chat. Back to you, Clarence.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks, Jana.
Lawrence.
I saw you
Oh,
do
so
that.
let's begin with a big question, or big picture question, right? What's something many professionals kind of assume will lead to career success, but often doesn't, right?
Yeah, good one. So we're going to piggyback on the very first thing Clarence shared, just get it out of the way. I think one of the first barriers is that hard work alone is going to get you ahead. Now, let me be clear, hard work is really important. You are where you are because you have performed. Most likely, you have performed in academic institutions to get to where you are today. And when you first get in the door, yes, performance matters. The working hard, it all matters because you want to stand out. At a certain point, though, most of you are performing with other people. Like your coworkers are also working hard. Here's a distinction I want to share. If you're working at 100% capacity or 90% capacity, and your coworker is working at 70 or 80%, just from a management or boss standpoint, the difference is so small that yes, they might notice you and say, well, that person gives everything they've got. They might notice you, but here's the thing about hard work. Hard work alone just shows that you're a hard worker. It may not to use distinct as a verb, it may not distinct you enough from being a leader, somebody who can do something beyond just hard work. The thing about hard work is if you only lean on hard work, you might actually burn more hours. You might say yes a lot more often. And that may communicate that you're dependable, you're reliable, but it also may communicate that you don't have boundaries or you may not value yourself as much. So it's interesting, right? As we talk about hard work, there's almost a diminishing return at some point, and we have to start to flex other muscles. Here's the way I say it, right? Now, if you resonate with this, I'd love you to put something in the chat. Like, yeah, I know somebody like that. Do you know somebody, could be in your friendship network, could be a coworker on a team, maybe another team in your company that works a lot less than you, but they seem to get noticed and rewarded and even promoted? Why is that the case? Well, I think that's proof enough that hard work alone could be a first barrier to what we're actually after.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's take a moment just to see. My chat window is really small right now, but if you can catch this kind of look, and thank you for putting in some of the experiences you may have had, right? And while we do that, we'll just spend a few seconds to see if there anything we might want to just call out. Yes, yes.
Yeah, a lot of yeses. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah. Take it till you make it, right? Yeah. Yeah, what do you think, Lawrence? I've heard of, you know, um, people kind of maybe commiserating about the fake it till you make it, or kind of imposters, who are kind of along that same line. But to your point, right, is that for those who are, if you feel like they're underperforming, how might you change that perspective?
So if you want to talk about fake it till you make it, and there might be some more interesting things in the chat, but I would never recommend that the fake it till you make it is sort of a survival tendency. You can fake it till you make it for a short amount of time, but it starts to leak, and there will be a day where the dam breaks. And so I don't recommend, especially if you're in a leadership position, don't fake it till you make it. And I would say imposter syndrome is very different from faking it till you make it. Imposter syndrome is this idea that maybe I don't belong in a certain position. I'm not sure how I got here. The choice is then you can fake it till you make it, or the choice is to recognize, like, why am I feeling this way? And the way I talk about imposter syndrome, this is a bit of a tangent here. The way I talk about imposter syndrome, it's actually not something to overcome. Imposter syndrome is actually a sign that you're in the right place because it means you've leveled up. And so if you've leveled up, you're facing challenges you've never faced before. There are more demands on you. That's exactly what you wanted. So imposter syndrome isn't something you need to get rid of. It's more of a sign like, oh, you've leveled up. And I would say actually embrace it. It's the reason it means you're actually in the right room. And in about a few months, you won't feel it anymore. You can embrace it by even acknowledging it, like even with your team. Hey, I'm new at this. So that's what I mean. Like, don't fake it till you make it. It's actually okay. You can earn brownie points by being a lot more vulnerable and figure out how you can grow in some of those things.
Really cool. Thank you, Lawrence. I'm sure you've worked with people who are also strong contributors, individual contributors, in their companies, but also, others don't always see them ready to lead, right? So good contributors, maybe not quite ready, to become a manager or a leader. What's that dynamic there? What's happening that you might
Yeah,
comment on?
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, kind of going back to what is strong contribution, right? I would say most of you are in a technical trade, so keep contributing technically. This leads us to our second barrier to career success. The second barrier is that there might be a lack of executive presence. And I want to break this down because executive presence can kind of be this looming, really, lofty thing out there. Let me just use the phrase leadership presence. Whether you ever want to be a leader or not in an official capacity, I want you to think of I am a leader type of person. Okay. And so keep contributing technically, but there could be a lack of leadership presence. And again, in this leadership presence, there's so much we can talk about. But the thing I want to hone in on today is this idea of how could you just be yourself in the room? So here's a really good thing that you can try today. You can practice leadership presence today. How are you with the safest people in your life? That could be with a spouse, that could be with a group of friends, that could even be with your team at work. How would you explain a concept? How would you show up there? The more natural that you can show up as yourself, you actually are developing leadership presence. What normally happens in a meeting or in a room is we start to filter ourselves. We start to overthink, or we start to try to perform a certain way, or we might get tripped up over our words. All those things limit leadership presence. And so if you're trying to describe a presentation, or you're trying to share an idea, or you're trying to just have a discussion, there's all these filters that come into mind that can prevent you from actually being your natural self. So there's almost a sense of authenticity that needs to come out in leadership presence. And are there other skills like, presenting skills? Sure, those can be true. But notice if you can break down something that is very technical for your friend or a spouse or a group of people who don't know what you do, they're naturally going to say, hey, we don't actually understand it. Can you break it down more? So you're already going to learn some of those communication skills just by being yourself. But notice you won't trip up over your words as much with a group of people you feel safe than you would at a maybe a work meeting. And it's just learning how to be more naturally yourself in those places. And that's a huge thing to work on, not just technical skills, but now some of these soft skills that are really important to make yourself distinct.
I couldn't help laugh or grinning, Lawrence, when you
Yeah, I saw that.
talk about leadership presence, and I was hearing authenticity, right? Or just being authentic, right? With yourself, comfortable in your own skin, no matter where you are, whether it's, with a friend group or you're out socializing or, in a meeting room, right? And, I think it just sounds like that level of authenticity, like you said, learning how to present, right? Learning how to be a speaker. Those things may be taught, but it always feels like that authenticity just breaks down a lot of these challenges, right? That you've been alluding to. So um, I
Yeah, let
like
me
that.
just
That
piggyback.
was a nice takeaway.
Yeah, let
Yeah.
me piggyback on that for a moment, Clarence. As simple as authenticity sounds, it can take you a lifetime to truly become 100% authentic. And here's what I mean. One of the most powerful things I do with executive leaders, you may think executive leaders, they're at the top, they don't struggle with this. Actually, they do. One of the things I work with executive leaders a lot on is actually how to just be yourself. There are a lot of filters, right? In the corporate environment, well, we get feedback. And so, well, I tried this and then I got feedback for I must be doing it wrong. Then we go the other direction. So there's all these voices that start to come in and just confuse a lot of things. So as I talk about authenticity, one of the hardest things for you to do in the corporate setting and maybe in life, just learn to be yourself. So if you can learn to do that now, you're going to be set up well. However you are with a bunch of friends, professionally, of course, right? We want to be that professionally in the world. How can we show up that way in different meetings in different places?
Is there a safe space to do this
Hmm.
kind of stuff? I
Yeah,
mean, friends and family, and close friends is one thing, right? But I'm sure there's a close network of professionals that you might be feel safe, uh, being able to make some mistakes, right? Or gather that feedback, right? But
yeah,
are there forums to do that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously there are more official things out there. I'm just going to give you some thoughts from a like anybody on this call can do this today. Number one, if you are married, or even if you're not, someone that really knows you really well. My wife, we just celebrated 20 years, by the way, about a week ago. Um, she has heard almost every single one of my presentations in my 20s and 30s. In my 40s, I did not subject her to such things, but for a long time, she has just heard everything because I got the feedback from her. She's somebody that doesn't understand what I'm talking about. So that was really helpful. That was my first safe space. My second safe space is finding other people who know me well. They could be friends. They also could be coworkers. That is like two or three people. It doesn't have to be five or 10. The more that you can practice being yourself and seeing where am I not myself or am I struggling, that's going to be the best feedback for you. Then, when you go to a place where you may not naturally be safe, just think, how would I show up as if I was with the same group of friends? Now, I get it. That's a hard mind shift, but that is a powerful way forward. Instead of waiting for them to show you that it's a safe space, you're already creating safety for yourself. And notice when you create that safety, it actually creates safety, and then they start feeling safe with you because you've owned the room. So, a lot of it is about knowing how much agency we have to actually create that safe environment whether it really exists or not, if we can project that safety there, we will show up that way, which then happens to create more safe environments.
Great takeaway there. Thank you. Let's move on to maybe the third barrier, around visibility, right? What tends to get in the way of people being more vocal, right, about their contributions or value to the work that they do, projects, teammates, company.
Yeah, good question. So, going back to the first barrier, one of the first barriers could be just believing hard work alone paves the way. So then we may not care about visibility. But if you do care about visibility, then here's the third barrier to career success is some discomfort or shying away from self-advocacy. I'm gonna share that again. Shying away or some discomfort with self-advocacy. I want us to think of an interview. If you're in an interview, the interviewee is going to ask you, what are some of your strengths? We won't talk about the weaknesses, but what are some of your strengths? You and I have to do the hard work of sharing something that is true about us in a way that's not just generic compared to other people. And when they ask about certain projects we've done or initiatives we've taken on, we have to share from beginning to end, right? What was the situation? What was the problem we're trying to solve? And we have to show them our whole thought process all the way through, right? The better that you can do that in an interview, not just the dry data, but show like what makes your thinking better, what makes your problem solving skills better, and how did you have a better result? That's what's going to help you shine in an interview. I think if we knew how to tap into that in the interview, I would say it's the same idea at work, except doing it when nobody's asking us. Okay? But it's that same mindset. You're not boasting about yourself. You're helping people understand the value you bring, even if they're not asking it. And I'm going to give you a tangible example. So in a former life, before I went into coaching, I was an executive director in the nonprofit space, and I had to report to a president. One of the things I was not waiting for is I wasn't waiting for somebody to ask me about progress. I was actively looking for ways to promote my team and promote accomplishments and achievements. So that's a really good translation because a lot of us who have a boss maybe are waiting for them to ask about a progress report. Well, I'm actively looking for where can I update this person on the achievements of my team or on a delivery that we're doing. And here's why that's really important. I think some of us in this field think that if I deliver something on time and on budget, that's just part of the course. That's not even worth mentioning. And I want to let you know that is absolutely worth mentioning. That is absolutely meant to be celebrated. It's almost like in school, like if I just got an A, that's just normal. It's not normal. Like you need to celebrate that A. And I want to bring that into the corporate space. If you delivered something on time, let them know, hey, this project looks like it's coming on time. It's supposed to be delivered next week. It is on time. And then tell them why. What have you been doing to make sure that it's been on time? The reason why this is important is because every single boss, kid you not, this is the one thing I think they'll all say this is true. They are busy. And what I mean by they're busy is their eyes are elsewhere on other things they're working on. So they don't have the bandwidth and capacity to see what you're doing. It might be like hard to admit most bosses may not actually know what their people are doing. And so you're giving them data so that it literally comes across their eyes and their ears. Without that, they don't actually know. And so you're actually giving them data. Otherwise, they'll be looking elsewhere. So this is why self-advocacy is so important. It's not boasting. It's not self-promotion. It's letting them know how you stand out, the value you provide, or your team, because otherwise they wouldn't see it and they wouldn't know it. And the more data you give them, by the way, the more you might help them shine to their bosses. So that's another benefit is it actually might make them shine. If they shine and you help them with that, you're going to shine.
Do you think that those opportunities, between the contributor and their boss happens, sometimes on these, monthly cadence meetings, one-on-ones, tag ups, right, project, debriefs, those kinds of things, versus, oh my God, you're like squeaky wheel, right? You're always kind of tripping away. So what does that look like?
Yeah, I would say all the above. I think some of us rely too much on the rhythms. And let me just let you know, having worked with top performing leaders, a lot of them do not have good rhythms. If you are relying on your boss to create the rhythm for you to speak about yourself, you are sorely just discounting all of your contribution. Most managers do not even have time to meet with their people. They're not even very present in those meetings. And so I'm always looking for you to go, what is it you want to create? Well, I want to create more rhythms with my manager. Cool. How could you get that? I guess I could ask them, yeah, do you want to do that? Okay. And then I check up, how did it go? They said yes. So just noticing the power you have, like create the rhythm you want to have with your manager. Ask them what communication channels work for you, and then light them all up.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you. I think that's really useful is to take ownership, right? Of that, relationship. Well, good, good. Hey, what do people often underestimate when it comes to building influence in an organization, right? And we're kind of starting to shift about, not only advocacy, but influence.
Yeah, nice. I think I saw somebody asking in the chat about networking. So that's what we're going to talk about here. The fourth barrier we're going to slide into because we're talking about underestimating building influence. This is what it's all about. To build influence is all about relationship. Without relationship, there's no one to influence. And you can influence your coworkers, but where you want to influence is higher levels. So the fourth hidden barrier is not building strategic relationships. What I mean by strategic is there are people that can open the door for you. In every single industry, whether you're in the corporate space or you're like myself, an entrepreneur, we need strategic relationships. The way I want you to think about strategic relationships is this. Who are those people that are going to mention your name in doors and meetings you're not part of? That's what you want access to. And so, if I just assume for a moment that everybody on this webinar are phenomenal high performers, that you might be some of the best kept secrets in your company, here's my encouragement to you. Stop being a secret. Stop being a secret. And the way that you can stop being a secret, yes, one is self-advocacy, but the other way is to build strategic relationships. Who are people that you admire who are doing what you want to be doing a few years out? Or who's a mentor you can call upon? Who's somebody that can sponsor you? And if you have no idea where to get started, um, you got to build that relationship, right? It's like any relationship. You don't start by saying, "Can you be my mentor or can you be my sponsor?" You start by getting on their calendar, grabbing coffee with them, learning about their background, interviewing them. Tell me about how you got into this industry. Even showing your value. Hey, are there any projects that I can take on in your department or around what you're doing where I can be of hand? Give them a sense of who you are and what you do, and then at the right time, right, you can ask, hey, would you be willing to mentor me? Would you be willing to be my sponsor? And spell out what that is and what that expectation is. But build those strategic relationships. I was coaching a senior manager a few years ago, and she wanted to become a director. And one of the questions I asked her is, if you want to become a director in X amount of time, we really made it compressed, like in 6 months. Um, what comes to mind that you need to do? And she said, oh my gosh, I need to start meeting with the CFO and I need to start meeting with the VP. I thought, nice. And so she's like, how do I do that? And I said, that's a good question. How could you do that? And she's like, I guess I could get on their calendar. The thing I want to share about that is imagine if she had that insight 2 to 3 years ago, as opposed to just in that moment. It's kind of that idea of like, when's the best time to plant a tree? Like 10 years ago, the second best time is right now. So if you build the strategic relationships now, I get curious on, ooh, where might you be a year from now or 2 years from now? And even if you get promoted in a year or two, those strategic relationships keep on compounding because those people will be there as well. So think about who are some people in your life that you admire, that inspire you. And here's the thing, get on your calendar, get on their calendar. It might feel daunting, like, I don't know how to do that, but I would encourage you, it might be a lot easier than you think. I'll give you one more example. Okay, this is not to boast about me. This is about what you could do. I had a 3 month stint with NASA JPL, and by the second week, I had a meeting with the COO. Just got it on the calendar, and then got on the calendar of the VP of Leadership Development. Uh, knew nobody in there, but was able to get on their calendar. So if I can do that within a month's time, I believe it's possible for you to get on someone's calendar. It's just a matter of urgency and agency. That's my encouragement there.
It's interesting because, when you think about that, Lawrence, and reaching into COO, within a short amount of time, I think there's also, and I think people fight this, right? Is, um, oh my God, they're untouchable, right? Versus, you know what, just get out there and try connecting with them. And I think part of it leads to perhaps this next fifth, or the fifth barrier, right, that we'll talk about is, this
Ha.
feeling safe, right? Feeling, I'm comfortable where I am, I've got this rhythm going on, and that inherently may be holding us back.
Yeah, nice. So let's get into our fifth barrier, which you mentioned. The fifth barrier to our career success is playing it safe. One of the things we say in coaching is that your current success is now the limitation for your future success. Let me say that again. Your current success has now become the limitation for your future success. And what I mean by that is once you've achieved wherever you are today on this call, it can get easy to want to just coast because you've worked really hard and maybe you just want to coast for a little bit. You don't want to rock the boat. We get into a level of comfort. Nothing wrong with comfort, by the way. It's just too much comfort can keep us where we are. And that's what I mean. Your current success is now the limitation for future success. Coasting may mean you just want to play it safe because you want to risk what's there. No, here's the good news. For what I understand about STEM is it's really hard to lose what you already have. Sans all the government layoffs that are taking place from above. But aside from that, it's really hard to lose where you are. So my encouragement is where are you playing it safe and where do you need to go all out and leave it all on the playing field? That could be as simple as sharing an idea that you've been holding back. Or for a lot of us who, think like I've got to do all my due diligence before I put it out there, I get that. That's the background you came from. I just wonder where due diligence might become perfectionism and you'll never put it out there so it's just right. My encouragement is you can always preface it by something like saying, hey, this isn't completely thought through yet. And so it may come off as half baked, but I want to get my idea out there. That is a great way to move from playing it safe to now playing a bigger game by at least getting that idea out there. Now nobody has the expectation that it needs to be fully thought through. And here's also the great thing about doing that. You're showing people that you're willing to go through, by the way, the normal process of ideation to execution. The normal process is some person comes up with a dumb idea, but because they shared it, a bunch of smarter people refined it to a better idea, and then they prototyped it, and they fail, realize where it didn't work, then they refined it again, something we call iteration, and now we've executed a much better product. By the way, that's how you and I have iPhones and Androids today. And they keep iterating and they keep having good ideas and bad ideas. So the thing is to get it out there, take that risk with some research and some diligence, but you can always preface it. The thing is, if you hold back and you just play it safe, they could be missing the powerful feedback or the value you bring. Not only will they miss out, but I've learned from experience, I will miss out too in seeing that I actually do have a brilliance to give and watching the impact take place in the team or company I'm part of because I chose to play it safe. So my encouragement is not to dive off, like the cliff, but look for where you might be playing it safe and where you might want to go bold because it's in you. It's just, again, where are you filtering? Where are you holding back?
There's a lot of things that you shared, Lawrence. It's very thought-provoking. Wanted to take a moment, Jessica, if you can kind of toss up the poll that we had around these 5 barriers, just to solicit some of your feedback from this audience of where you lie with some of these barriers. And the other is, starting to recognize that some of these, may be inherent in yourself. But Lawrence, what is a small shift that folks can do this week, today, to start moving that needle a little bit?
Nice. Yeah, so take that poll and I would say for you, highlight like the top one. As we've talked through each moment, I want to move from just having an insight to an action. And I would just get really present for your top one that you're marking here. Like if it's hard work or if it's something else, okay, then what are you going to do differently this week? And it doesn't have to be a big thing. So in the one thing I just gave about playing it safe, it could be a decision to share an idea finally and maybe preface it appropriately. That could be your action step. That's a great one. Just choose one. You can execute on 5 things, so choose one thing from today and make a commitment to see it through. It is these little tiny commitments to these actions that would actually bring transformation. If it's the lack of leadership presence, maybe you're just going to practice certain things in your safe group and then learn to ask that question when you go to work. How would I show up today if I felt absolutely safe, like they were just a group of my friends? That could be your action step. So I'm just looking for some examples I've shared today for you to take one action.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for eliminating, some of these barriers that sometimes hold us back and, helping us collectively, take a baby step forward, right? A small shift forward. I know that you and I have been talking about the pro conference and you being there. and providing additional insights and training around some of these topics in professional development and leadership. So I look forward to kind of hearing that presentation in Pittsburgh this October. So thank you again. I wanted to take an opportunity, and I'm going to try to look over here a little
Yeah,
bit.
and let me give you a moment, Clarence, to do that because you mentioned it real briefly, and I do want to let everyone know if you're obviously on this call. There's a SACE national conference coming up this October where I'm bringing a workshop to address these 5 areas, and we're going to go through 5 really powerful tools that we didn't talk about today that are going to get you to the next level. And again, even just trying one of the tools and implementing it, it's going to get you further than where you are now. So I'd love to have a chance for you to join the workshop. This is in person only, where we actually get to interact face to face and with the table, highly interactive, and you get to have very practical, concrete actions in your own context. So I'd love to see you there.
Absolutely. I'm trying to like go back up to the top of the chat thread and scroll down a little bit. You know, it's always fun to see if I can cherry pick. If we don't get to everybody, apologies, but let me see if I can pull something out. And please continue to put stuff in chat, questions also. Oh, here's a question. How many of you tend to find yourself feeling like an imposter? Okay. Well, this is Jim. I think Jim is still with us. I think we talked about that a little bit already. How important is networking to moving up? Ooh, that's a good one. I think you touched on it, but that's a
Sure.
really important question. Thank you, Richard, for that.
As somebody who has really, I mean, I had personally struggled with this early on in my career. I thought it was about showcasing all the value that I could bring in my own performance. And I realized at some point, again, it hits its limit. So even if like I assume everybody on this call has really great skills and you provide very high quality work that is honorable and that is value, it just hits its limit because you're only one person. Networking is this ability to leverage a lot more people for the impact you want to make. Yes, sometimes networking is about getting your name in the room. Sometimes it could lead to collaboration. I think the thing I would say about networking is you never actually know where it's going to lead. That can be frustrating at times. And yet you're just building this sort of embedded process that networking is important. I need to get out there, meet more people because they could become collaborators. They could become advocates. There's so much that can come out. They could just be friends. Like we always need more friends. Um, so it is essential to not just like career success for all of life is what I would say on that one, Clarence.
Great. Thank you, Lawrence. As I continue to, I'm just, there's some really good stuff in here. That sometimes I'm getting a
Let's
little
do
bit
it.
tied into the chat thread. But hey, people, come off mute. If you want, just chime in and ask Lawrence a direct question. As I continue to kind of scroll here.
And
Yeah,
Clarence, could I pull out one that I saw?
please do. Yeah.
There's a couple that talks about defining success, and I think this is a really good one, a really deep one, but I want to address it for a moment. Yes, career success is whatever you want it to be. I know that there are cultural factors from society. There might be your own culture that defines success. In the way I play, even with high-level executives, I always ask, how do you define success? And a lot of people do not have a expansive version of how they define success. For me, it's about impact, who I'm working with and the impact we're creating. To me, it's not about titles. To me, it's not even about monetary gain. That's just how I'm defining for myself right now for the impact I want to make. You might be in a very different part uh, of your career journey where you've defined it a certain way. And I just want to give you liberty to play with that. Nobody can define what success looks like except you. And that's why I said at the very beginning of this chat, like these are 5 hidden barriers not just to promotion. You may just define success as like, hey, I just want to at least get recognized for the work I'm doing. That might be success for you. And then these are 5 barriers that are preventing you from getting recognized. There might be some of you out there that says, I don't even know if I need to get recognized. Then I would put it the other way is if you don't get recognized for the value you're bringing, it'll actually limit the value you bring. And so what that does in turn is it means you're not serving people the best way that you can. So sometimes by it's not being selfish, but it's like self-ish. It's of yourself. By being an advocate of yourself, you'll actually serve people a lot better. That's something to get your head around. We can talk about that more if you come to my workshop, but it is a very powerful principle to really embrace that by holding yourself back or not advocating for yourself and not breaking through these five barriers, it's actually not about per se you being promoted. It's about you increasing the amount of people you serve and the way that you serve. That's the way I would put it on that one. But yes, please do define career success on whatever is meaningful for you.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. As I was scrolling through, I just took a screenshot of the five barriers that we've been talking about so that you could pin it up. Thank you, Denise, for for that. I saw that, so quickly grabbed the poll. Yeah, I think it's just marvelous. It's a self-reminder also that, some of the small things that we can work on that make a transformational change. Again, I wanted to thank Lawrence for these really neat nuggets of information. Again, looking forward to hearing more, learning more at the Pro Conference. That's in October. Jessica, we start wrapping up. If you could also throw up our webinar chat, please come off mute if there's any questions there. There are three questions, as we always ask in the survey poll, so we can get feedback, do better, those kinds of things in the future. But also, our next webinar is with Hope Yin. Hope is, if you may have attended the Women's Leadership Conference back on April the 25th. She was one of our co-MCs. She is presenting on what most people get wrong about promotion. So kind of a little bit related, but again, we just tee this up again as we move towards professional conference. Lawrence, any kind of last pieces of wisdom that you wanted to share before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think the big thing is, a lot of what I'm sharing today, maybe if I give you sort of a picture, is I'm staying in my cubicle, I'm going to grind, and I'm going to do it alone. That's sort of these barriers that we're trying to break through. If you're starting off in your career, like the first 1 to 3 years, that is what it could look like. And what I'm trying to do here is shift it early on so that even in year one, yes, do the hard work, but don't just stay in your cubicle, right? Or, behind a camera. The more that you can get out there, and this is not an introverted or extroverted thing, learn to understand your value and actually talk about it in a way where you're confident and not see it as self-promoting and also not do the humble brag. Like you will be distinct as, ooh, that person, I need to pay attention to that person. That's ultimately what we want. Whether you define success career as promotion or not, it's how you can make a greater impact and actually continue to bring the value that you bring. So that's really my encouragement is how do you move away from this sort of like huddle by myself in this cubicle and just do the hard work to like expanding way beyond? Because if my assumption is right and you are as amazing as I believe you are, then more people should come across who you are and what you bring. And I'd love for that to take place.
Thank you so much. Really, I saw the last comment here from Kenya about changing your mindset, right? And I think those are those kinds of things that allow us to help us, folks like friends, sharing how we might be able to just tweak little small things about us that make a huge impact. So thank you, Lawrence. Thank you so much for really insightful stuff. Look forward to seeing you again in October. And any last things before we close up and wrap up today? Please come off mute or put in chat.
Yeah, Lawrence, I have a question.
Yeah.
If you're known as an outstanding team player, can that kind of hold you back until you try to cultivate a different image?
Really good question. So I think that goes back to which one I was talking about. And let me just make this clear. You should continue to be an outstanding team player. By the way, nobody wants to work with a person who's not a team player. You can let me just add to that. You can be an outstanding team player and an outstanding leader. In fact, leaders are great team players. The distinction here is that you can disrupt and still be a team player. I'm not disrupting the team, I'm disrupting status quo for the sake of a team. So you can play it, you can I'm blanking on the playing it safe. You can take risks and play boldly while being a team player. You can self-advocate for yourself and your team while being a team player. You can build strategic partnerships while being a team player. You can, you can do all the things while being a team player. It's just making sure that you're not doing it that let me make sure I'm phrasing it the right way. Everything you're doing is actually to make the team better. And sometimes that means disrupting status quo. So both can be true at the same time.
This one just came in. How do you deal with you being at the best of what you do is difficult to replace, so it ends up being a barrier in promotions?
Yeah. It is hard from a boss or management standpoint, right? I think what I'm hearing is if you're really good at what you do and you want to get promoted, then it leaves a gap. Um, most I don't know if I can say most, a lot of managers and bosses, right? If they're a good leader, they understand that for you to be at your best is to continue to advance. Because at some point, if you stay where you are and you've already made it clear you don't want to stay there, your performance will actually drop. So most managers who actually have that expansive capacity know it's to their benefit and to your benefit to actually advance you. Um, because here's the thing, there will always be a gap. One person may make the difference, and there's so many different ways to handle that. By you leaving, for example, your team will have to rise up. That's actually a benefit. You cannot build a business or company upon one person. You cannot build a team upon one person. So for the highest performer to move up is a win for everybody. And they might need to fill that gap. And there could be knowledge transfer. So there's so many benefits there. If you do have a manager that you feel like is stifling you for whatever reason, that's where you might need to reach out. Obviously, have those conversations, share some of these things that we're talking about, and then you might want to leverage some of your network to help you as well.
This one's I just saw come through, and again, I just for those who are needing to come off or roll off, please do. But Mira, do you want to come off mute and ask your question? I think this is really relevant and salient. Lawrence, do you see Mira's?
Is it the one, how can you advocate for yourself in a professional way and not to sound so personal, show anger if somebody's rude, gives advice?
Right.
How can you stand up for yourself if you're not treated respectfully?
Yeah.
Yeah, great question. So I always talk about two conversations. The first conversation, this is in the midst of conflict, is when you're like really emotional and upset. And if you ever dated somebody or you're married, that conversation usually doesn't go very well. So I don't advocate for having that first conversation where you're just yelling and right? What you want to do is get to a place where you're calm and like non-emotional, where you then want to have that second conversation and basically share about the way something impacted you, the way that it made you feel. The reason for that is nobody can take away your experience. You're not finger pointing at somebody, you're sharing about the way you were impacted. And whether somebody intended it that way or not, they can't negate that that's how it affected you. And it's starting with you. And so when someone uses I language, like, hey, this is the way I felt when this happened, it's a lot more invitational as opposed to you're starting with, hey, you said that, you that. Like, just imagine like I'm confronting you saying that, your wall just automatically goes up. So I'm looking for what is the conversation that invites more input. The way this happened is, at this meeting, here's what was said and here's the way it impacted me. You might even share some observations. I observed this taking place. I observed this taking place, and here how it's impacted me. And then you could share, whatever else you want to share. I believe that I have a right to blah blah blah. Um, that already brings the wall down for somebody to engage you, and then see where it goes from there. So that again, we could do a whole workshop on that, but I'm just giving you the really short version. Is start with the way you've been impacted, and then invite the conversation to the next step.
Let's close this up with one more question. I think goes back, remember, to being your authentic self. Remember that, Lawrence. And what other barriers do you see as common themes at the executive level? You know, to that level of authenticity or kind of related to it.
There's so much in the executive level. This could be theme of how do I help my team perform at higher levels? Because even executives are surrounded by senior teams, and I always say the the challenge of every leader is like, why can't my team perform at my level, right? And it's like, well, there's a reason why you're at that level, and so it's like shifting your expectation or shifting how you may be thinking about your team, because what happens is you're only seeing your team through your strengths, but every team member has a strength. So it's learning how to value some of those strengths and leverage them. That's a key theme we might see. Another executive level struggle, yes, still the imposter syndrome. It's actually learning to get clear a lot of times. There's a lot of noise. And so a lot of times I'm working on like, what is it you would like to do in this meeting if we could just remove all the noise and just look at what comes to mind? So in a sense, we're coming back to that idea of authenticity. What would you want to say in this meeting if you could just be unfiltered? And all swearing is promoted, by the way, in my calls with executives, just to get it out of them and then say, okay, cool. How could you actually say that in a bold and direct way, um, without any sort of the edginess, but also none of the sort of like people pleasing tendencies? So these are some things we work on as well. And then another one is like, how do you create a compelling vision for the next 12 months, 24 months, right? Something that's bold, provocative, that everyone gets excited for. These are some things that we might work on.
Well, thank you again, Lawrence, for just a wonderful, commentary and some insights into some of these barriers. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. And again, everyone, thank you for coming on to today's webinar. Look forward to seeing you in August with Hope Yin's presentation. So we'll have a fairly similar format. She is wonderful, dynamic. She vibes so well. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll let you go.
Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you.